Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast, conversations designed for the conscious community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. Today with us, we have the beautiful Dina that's coming all the way from the US of A. We met each other through Healy, actually, and then developed a friendship through commonality, as you do. So regard Dina as one of my true soul sisters, and welcome into this space, beautiful.
Thank you, Katie, for having me. Yes, a very beautiful synchronicity of how we met and how we're teammates and how we're soul sisters and helping with the expansion of this planet and the consciousness.
And we did chat just before we got online, and we're like, let's just let it flow. And that's what we do, is like, there was no plan around today's podcast. We're just going to hear beautiful Dina's wisdom straight through my questioning. So my first question to you is, what is it in this life that makes your heart sing?
What makes my heart sing? Freedom fighting. Like, I think I had lifetimes as a warrior, and I'll pull some astrology in. This will sound like Greek to anybody who's not into astrology, but for those who are, I have an Aries moon, right? And my teacher taught us that, like, the moon is your PhD. Wherever your moon is in your chart, it's like you've had lifetimes in that energy. And so Aries is the masculine. It's ruled by Mars. It's the warrior. It's the first sign of the zodiac, charging in, to take care of things. We don't always think before we act. But I've always been a freedom fighter. And I just was thinking about this earlier, going into New York City with my family to see the St. Patrick's Day parade. And we were walking on some street, and back in the mid 70s, New York City was not an easy place to be. It was pretty rough. And there was a man who probably had cerebral palsy. I'm not quite sure, but he was having trouble moving around, and these young punks were kind of jostling him, just messing with him. And my father ran right up there and, like, was ready to, like, battle these guys. And I remember running in with an umbrella, and I was, like, poking at them, like, I'm gonna, like, get these bad guys out of here. Like,
Yeah.
how could you treat somebody like that?
Yeah.
So, the warrior of wanting people to be seen and valued and to remember their soul essence.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so
Yeah.
much. And the work that you're doing now, in the present day, how did you get to be doing this line of work? Like, where was your starting point, and what has sort of happened along the journey?
God, it's been so much. My mom's mom is from the Yucatan, like where Chichen Itza is, the Mayan temple and the ruins. Like, she was from Merida, which is a city right in that area, and very holistic. Wound up in the States as a young girl and ended up staying and marrying my grandfather, but she didn't deal with Western medicine.
Mm.
Her ways were always like, if you didn't feel well and you felt like a cold coming on, a hot lemonade simmered, put some honey in there, drink it. She just didn't do modern medicine. So I always thought that was really interesting.
Mm.
And my mom was more like, she took us to the doctors, and I would get, like, antibiotics if I had strep throat and all that. And I think by the time I got to become a teenager, I started to really look at, like, what my grandmother, her ways of,
Got
dealing with the
curious.
body. Yeah. And I didn't go to massage until I was 40. I was managing a candy store in Northern California. And I remember this thought in my head, and here's how spirit comes in, just like us winging this podcast where we
Yeah.
didn't have an agenda. Let spirit flow. I heard this thought in my head. I wonder if they're doing a massage class in Mount Shasta, because I lived on the south side of that very sacred mountain that's considered the
Mm.
root chakra of the planet. And I had taken a Reiki course in Mount Shasta a few years before. So I had this thought pop out of my head out of nowhere. But prior to that, my whole life, I thought anybody who did massage must be insane. Wouldn't your hands and arms kill you? I would never do that. And this thought comes in, and I'm like, let me check. And this was on a Wednesday. That Saturday, they were doing registration for,
Oh,
like, a
no way.
3-month class. Yeah. So I jumped in, and that's how the massage started. But, like, 2 years before that, or 3 years before I started, I got my Reiki certification in Usui, levels 1 and 2. So it was a lot to do with my grandmother.
Mm. And it was
Mm-hmm.
that bringing that in now, being able to have the contact with the bodies and the people coming in for massage, which ended up probably being a whole lot more.
It was a lot more. But before that, like, after I had my level 1, and we were taught that you could do distance Reiki, my father had prostate cancer, and he had it in the very early stages. Thankfully, he was checked every year, and they caught it in the beginning. And he opted to have radiation seeds implanted, which for 3 months would kill any cancer cells. But after they dissipated, that's it. If there's more cancer, then they'll deal with it in another way. And the PSA, the reading for the cancer in the blood, kept rising, right? So when they found it, it was like a 0.9. And now, a year after the radiation seeds have done their job, it's a 1.4. Now it's a 2.1. And they wanted to do hormone replacement, like months down the road. And I said, oh, Dad, don't do that. I can do this long distance frequency healing on you, with my hands and with a picture of you. I can intend for you. How do you feel about that? And he's like, oh, I totally believe in that. So for 21 days, I used a teddy bear. 21, yeah, that was our Reiki master said 21 days at the same time, if you can, is really powerfully intentional. Do that. I had a teddy bear. I had a picture of my dad, and I had Barbara Brennan's book. Is it Hands of Light? I think it's called. And I was testing with a pendulum how the chakras were running, or how they were opening, or they weren't. And I did this session with him. This is before the massage, for 21 days. And he said 2 of those nights, so it was about midnight on the East Coast of the US, because I was in Mount Shasta. He woke up and he said, I felt this warming sensation in my prostate, and I knew you were working on me. So now he came back. He had gone to the doctor again. They tested the blood. It was like a 2.4, and it was climbing, and they wanted to do the hormone replacement in like another month. This was in July. He came to see me, and I did 2 physical treatments on him. He fell asleep both times. He's like, oh, wow, the heat coming from your hands was like so relaxing. He went to the doctor. Now, he hadn't had any treatment in a year and a half, and the PSA kept rising, the levels, right? It was so wild. The nurse said, well, we'll call on Friday, and we'll have your results by the end of the day. That nurse phoned the house at noon on Friday, and she said the reading was a 0.01, and they had no explanation. Yes. I was like,
oh, I really love that.
We both knew what it was. It was like the frequency, the intention, the belief, the love.
I have just finished a book, The History of Vibrational Medicine, and it talks into this exact thing. And yeah, I love hearing it from a first-hand trusted source that, this can be done. And intention is everything. Like, if you wanted to just talk a little bit into intention around your knowledge of it, just for the listeners, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the more I get into the frequency of Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and all these beautiful teachers that are on the planet showing us how much focus and intention, it sounds cliche now, but like, what is it? Energy flows where attention goes. So what you're focused on, it's going to go there. This is a simulated, we're in a simulation. We are, and they've proven that with quantum physics. We are in a freaking matrix. I don't care how woo crazy that sounds. 3 quantum physicists won the Nobel Peace Prize in October for their work on quantum entanglement and their research.
Yeah,
right. So anybody that says, "Oh, this is all," like the Healy, especially because Marcus Schmieka's work, everything's connected to the one. So that whole cliche phrase, "We're all one," we are all one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And the power behind that, if we are the energy that creates worlds, we're an offshoot of that. Our intention and our focus has got to go somewhere, right? So wouldn't it be better to have it go to where you want than to, by default, create stuff out of panic and fear? Like I think we all know what that feels like, and it doesn't feel good.
No, not at all. I know what I choose.
Yeah. And every morning now, I mean, I'm doing this for like a little over 13 months now, Dr. Joe's videos, and I have a lot in my astrological makeup, but I have Gemini. A lot of Gemini. My son is there. I'm very I could be quick speech. I move fast. So for me, getting up to meditate, I'm like, who has time for that? I have a coffee pot to make. My feet are hitting the ground. I don't have time to sit there. But there's also that quote too. If you don't have time to sit for 20 minutes, do a meditation, do an hour.
Yes, I love that.
And so I've worked my way up from 10-minute meditations on YouTube to I can sit for an hour now if I need to. But every morning, if I get out of bed just to use the toilet or brush my teeth, I go right back in while I'm still in that almost theta state, and I'll go into a meditation to set the energy for my day.
Yeah, perfect. And this beautiful esoteric work and all the exploring that you've done over the years, I think you told me it started at a really young age. Can you speak into sort of that for us?
Yeah, I remember looking in the mirror when I was a young girl in the bathroom off the kitchen and staring at myself. And I was just looking into my eyes, and I heard this, how you have a thought in your head. If you've had this experience, or if anybody's had this experience where there's a thought in your mind, but it's not yours, like you don't even think like that. Like, it's not something like, Katie would think, or Dina, like I would think. I heard this voice as I'm staring at myself going, I know that you're Dina, but who are you really?
Oh.
Yeah, I was 3. And I was like looking at myself and I went, wow, who is that?
Mhm.
Or years later going into the hospital, when back in the day, we weren't allowed to go up and visit somebody sick if you were under 12. So you have germs, you can't come in.
Mm.
So my mom would leave me downstairs in the waiting room or something. And I remember the clinical smell of the hospital,
Mm.
and going,
Gross.
smelling it and thinking, I heard this voice in my head. Wow, look at the technology. Look how far they've come. And I'd be thinking, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Fast forward in my 20s, I had a flashback when I was 13 and I watched Gone with the Wind of being a triage nurse during the Civil War. But then I didn't know why I got so freaked out watching the scene. If anybody's ever seen that movie, during the American Civil War, in the 1860s, there was no medication. They might give you laudanum to kind of like help you pass out, or alcohol. But, they're sawing men's legs off and arms off because they're getting blown off and you're biting on a strap.
Yeah,
They took
craziness.
Scarlett, the main character, to give her a little dose of reality into this field hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. And I flipped out and I went running out of the room. And my mom's like, what's the matter? I'm like, I can't. And I had a memory of it like years
Yeah.
later,
I've got goosebumps over my
So,
whole body.
yeah, being fascinated in the hospital, like, wow, look how far they've come, but
Mm.
not realizing in that lifetime, feeling like I didn't do enough. Right. But then realizing after the fact that just by holding a soldier's hand, how much good that incarnation did for people, in that other lifetime, just being there and doing what you could. It's just like giving somebody a smile on the street. You don't know how much is your smile to that stranger going to affect them. It could really make their day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just talking to someone about that yesterday. Being that beaming light, just because, no agenda, just because.
Just because, exactly. So that, it all ties into the healing and the mystical stuff. I mean, I have a Scorpio ascendant at 0 degree. It's really powerful. All my Gemini is in the 8th house, which is Scorpio's house. And that house has to do with like death, rebirth, deep transformational lifetime, deep. Sex, intimacy, joint real estate, inheritance, other people's money. Like, all these things have always been like a very big part of my life. Like there's always one, there's always one in every family that nobody understands. I don't know if I would call myself the black sheep, but
Your astrological knowledge blows my mind, like, completely. You just talk about it like normal English. It just streams out of you. It's like
it's been
foreign to me.
ingrained.
I understand little snippets of it, but so at what age did you sort of weave this into your existence to sort of use it as a bit of a guide or a framework for yourself?
Probably more in my 20s, I think, like when I had children. I mean, I was always into it. All my books, like the first chapter book I ever read was on the Salem witchcraft trials when I
Yeah.
was in 2nd grade. I remember taking the books out from the library in school, Salem witchcraft trials. And then I went to Salem years later with my former husband and just had this like intense experience in the witch museum, where on the floor were the names in a circle, kind of like a spiral, like a labyrinth, of all the people that were hung, and one man was pressed to death for witchcraft in that village. And I got so weepy. Like, there's just so many stories I could tell you, but I was just kind of sucked back into it,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, trippy.
And that linked you into learning all about planetary alignments and your houses and things like that.
Yeah, I just was always into it. Just the esoteric. The 8th house is the esoteric knowledge. And yeah, my chart's kind of missed. I have Neptune in the 1st house, and Neptune it rules Pisces, so it's the collective unconscious. It's the dreamer, on its positive level. It's the rose-colored glasses. We're going to heal everybody. Let's do this. And then on the flip side, it's insane asylums and drug addiction and alcoholism and let's escape from reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything has a shadow and a light side of it. But
Super
yeah, it's just
interesting when
always I've always been
people.
that way.
Yes, I love that for you. It's super interesting when people get curious about it and explore it, because it may help to explain some of the patterns that people have been stuck in throughout their life, where they're like, why do I keep doing this?
Exactly. And you know what I've done with the Healy? I've taken the Healy and I did it for a girlfriend. It was amazing. Basically taking a natal chart from the person. So you have to have your birth time, because each sign has 30 degrees or 29 degrees in each house. And the rising sign is the sign of the zodiac that was coming up over the horizon at the time of your birth. Doesn't matter if you're born at midnight or 3 a.m. Doesn't matter. It's there. and it changes a degree every 4 minutes is kind of critical, right?
Yeah.
So I would take the natal chart or a composite chart of two people, right? Souls, like a karmic relationship, and use that as the photo for the aura scan.
Ooh.
Right? Use that. And then we scan. And I did it for a girlfriend, and it was mind blowing because what came up for her and a friend was really like, I let her read it and she's like, wow, that's like so spot on. There's a lot of energy going back and forth between these two friends all the time. And I'm like, this is so karmic. And then I could see it in the chart when I ran their chart together, but the Healy brought it up, and then we cleared stuff, right? We cleared it. And there was like a little bit of a reconciliation a few days later.
Oh, wow.
And there had been no contact for months. And she asked me, do you think it was the frequencies? I'm like, yeah.
We know. Yeah. Oh, what a cool idea to combine the two. What made you think to do that?
I don't know, because I love astrology and I've seen my own aura scan. So I'm like, let's do that. So I do readings for people. If anybody's interested, they can reach out to me. I think it's fascinating.
Absolutely. And perhaps people that haven't explored that astrological side to things, but they're into, say, the chakras and auras and things like that, to bring the two together to get that deeper level of energy, subtle energy. What's going on in there? How can I explore this? How can I get curious about it? I love that.
Yeah, because there's so much that we're here to do, I mean, I did a video on my TikTok channel today. I'm like, who knows why they're here? Not like to your 9 to 5, like you got to put food on the table, but what lights you up? That's your soul mission.
And why
Do you
don't
love
people ask that question? That's what gets me, is like, why wouldn't you want to know what lights you up? Why do you want to be like society wants you to be? Why don't you getting curious about what it is that you actually want to be and what you actually want to do?
it's conditioning and programming, right? And all the great teachers of the times today speak about that it's subconscious. So when I go to sleep at night, I put on Reality Revolution, is a great channel on YouTube. Brian Scott is a narrator. And there's so many great videos, but they have like long 8 and 10 hour playlists. One is for everything is always working out for me, or everything is always working to my advantage. And in the beginning, maybe for the first 10 to 15 minutes, he talks to you and he's getting you to a relaxation state where maybe you're like, even at some point, like focusing on every muscle in the body and like tightening in it for like, as long as it feels a little bit uncomfortable, and then releasing it and relaxing. And he talks you down into a sleep state. And then the sentence, or, the sentences that he's speaking to help rewire your brain. Everything's always working out for my advantage. Things are coming to me easily and always will. And it's just, you sleep with that to rewire the programming that's stopping us from asking, what is it that lights me up?
Oh, I love that. And you know what? You could even make your own after you've listened to it for a while, and put some of your favorite tracks behind it and some of your own affirmations and mantras and things. Oh, yeah, I love that.
I know. I'm not very techie, so I need to find like an app or something where my voice would loop, where I could just, because I could speak the sentence maybe a few times, but how to get a looper so it's looping all night. Yeah, absolutely. And with some solfeggios behind it.
Powerful. Hey, tech people listening to this, connect in with Dina and I and make us one of these.
Yes,
That would be
please.
amazing. This is a business opportunity in itself. But yeah, I love that. My beautiful time waver practitioner that I work with, Jazz, she actually does time waver frequencies with this sort of subconscious reprogram messaging and the solfeggi, I can't say that word ever, tunes with it. So yeah, that's definitely something we can explore more and tap into, and maybe get her on as a guest. But so this guy will put the information. Did you say Brian Scott?
Yeah, Brian Scott is the name of the man that narrates all these videos. What is the name of the man? I'm trying to remember the name of the man who's there's a man like in the 1930s that brought together all these teachings. He brought them forth. Neville Goddard. Goddard was his name. And so it's Neville Goddard's books that he did, and his like discourses that Brian Scott started. I guess he started the channel with that a few years ago. I've been listening to him for a few years, but now he does podcasts, and he's got so many different playlists on there. Reality Revolution. It's phenomenal.
It's great when you find something that really works for you and that you're really drawn to. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and the listeners. We'll definitely put that in the comments. Now, you were talking to me also about work that you've done, say, and I know it was within one of your houses, but to do with death.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing with Scorpio too. Pluto rules Scorpio. It's Pluto and Mars co-rulers, but Pluto is all about like the archetype of Persephone. If anybody knows the story of Persephone, Demeter, the goddess, was her mother, and Persephone was her entire world. She loved her daughter, and Persephone was out picking flowers one day, I guess in the spring, and Hades came upon her from the underworld and fell in love with her and grabbed her and kidnapped her and took her down into the underworld. And Demeter was searching high and low, and when she found out where her daughter had been taken to, she just was heartbroken. And so that's why we have fall and winter, because before that everything was kind of like subtropical all the time. And this is the story goes about the seasons, that Demeter was just heartbroken, and so she like just stopped everything from growing. And she made a bargain with Hades that if he would bring Persephone back up 6 months out of the year, then we have spring and summer.
Oh, wow.
Right. So when she goes back, we have fall and winter. And so it's the archetype of Pluto, like going into the underworld. And if you think about like Hermes or Mercury, the winged messenger of the gods, he was the only one that could go into the underworld and come back unscathed. Like it didn't burn him, nothing happened to him. He could bring messages back and forth. And that's Pluto's medicine bag, and it's got to do with death. I had a friend that died in 2nd grade of a tonsillectomy. And I'm still not sure how the rumor mill got around to us as children, but we heard that he had told his mother he was afraid to have this surgery, that he was going to die. And of course, she assured him, no, you'll be fine. And he should have been. Even in 1972, when this happened, tonsillectomies were pretty common. And he didn't survive. He died. And I remember leaving my friend's swimming pool party in like September to go to this young boy's funeral.
Yeah.
You know, and it just spiraled. Every year there was like 3 deaths or 4 deaths. I grew up in a village of maybe 3,500 people, a very tight-knit community. And it just seems to me that Sag Harbor, my hometown, has so many deaths every year. And like, maybe that's the same for every village. I don't know, but I feel like we have more than our fair share. And I was just got used to it happening, but not used to it where I took it for granted. Like it really made me love the people that I was around, because what I realized was death doesn't discriminate, whether you're 2 days old or you're 92. You could be gone at any time. Nobody's guaranteed a certain amount of time on this planet, and make the most of it. You came here to live and love, right? So do that. Do that.
And if you find yourself in a downward spiral or a place where you're unable to get in contact with that, search and connect with people to bring that into your life and to look for ways to spark that again or ignite that again within yourself.
Exactly, because there's always somebody that has a gift that we don't have, right? I mean, that's the beauty of being human and being on this planet with 8 billion people. It's not comparing ourselves to somebody else, but somebody else always has like something that could complement us. So why not learn from them and then share whatever gifts you have?
Oh, I love that last part is, you know, as you learn, as you go through it, you know, to grow through it, then, you know, embodying that for yourself and then teaching it to those that come to you, you know, that I think that's important. And we don't want to hold on to something that could be a medicine for others through ego or whatever that may be, or self-doubt.
Absolutely. And I had gone through training. I just found my paperwork the other day and I threw it out. I'm like, I don't need to save all these papers because we're getting ready to sell the family home and I'll be moving. And I don't want to schlep all these things that I'm not using. But it was from the death doula course. I got certified as an end of life death doula. And I was going to go into the field, and it turns out I didn't realize at the time, but that was setting me up, even though I've had all these deaths in my life, to be able to care for it and know the signs and all of that. When my parents would die, I would be there holding space for them as they took their final breath, you know, and it's mind blowing, you know, how the universe works. You think you know something, but you're not really sure how it's going to unfold, and it's all divine.
Yeah. And for those that don't really know what a death doula is, are you able to talk a little bit more into that?
Yeah, it's like a midwife, you know. So a midwife like brings a new life into the planet, right? You're bringing a baby, helping to birth so that the baby's safe. It's like birth in reverse. You're being with the person as they're dying, helping the physical, keeping their mouth, you know, moist, tending to the body, holding space for the family, putting on music, maybe reading something that the loved one, having pictures around that would make the dying person comfortable, you know, just quietness and candles and just making it very sacred, because they are leaving, you know. And for my dad, he was really ready to go. Like he checked out because his physical body, he wasn't able to like move. They put him in a wheelchair one day. He had 10 years of dementia, and at the last 9 days or so, it's like the brain really got calcified. So he didn't know what to do with the utensils. He didn't know what clothing was for. And then by the following week, and I was in California, I had 4 years of being here. I was exhausted. So I went back to California. My sister-in-law called, and the last day that he was semi-conscious, they had him on comfort care. I called and I spoke to him on the phone, and she said his mouth went up and his eyebrows went up. And then
Oh,
after I hung,
yes.
because he knew it was me, and I asked him to wait. I said, wait for us. I know that there's family on the other side calling you home, but we really need you to wait till we get there. And my oldest daughter and her husband and I flew home like 17 hours before he passed.
Mm.
This is how powerful the spirit is. My oldest daughter is the oldest grandchild and his first grandchild. On both sides of the family, and she was born on 12/17, so December 17th, and he took his final breath at 12/17.
Oh.
You want to talk about intentional? That was intentional. It was so beautiful. It was such a testament. And she wasn't his favorite. I mean, he loved all his grandchildren. He had 4 of them, but she was the first pumpkin. He would call them my pumpkins, you know?
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Oh
And
my
then when my
God, that's
mom
just put so
passed,
much emotion through my body.
oh God, it was incredible. We were all here. My dad was a radio personality, so he had this big booming voice. And when a person passes, that final breath they take, like all the air's coming out of the lungs, they call it a death rattle. It makes this like a rattle. And it was the deepest, most exquisite sound I have ever heard from my father. And I went, there it goes. There goes that voice, you know? Woo.
Beautiful.
Yep. I know. It's so beautiful. I mean, I have so many videos of him, and I'm so grateful because I can hear his voice, you know?
Yeah, that's what's special to you.
Yeah. So special.
Oh,
So,
what
that's a destiny, holding space. You can go into the field and work with other families, but after that, I was like, I don't want to.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Well,
at
it
some point I will, but not now.
would take such depth of compassion and understanding to remain in that space and be able to hold that for others through a grief process.
Yeah, because you have to understand the family's really grieving, and depending what they're, and you can't put your belief systems on them. So for me, like I used to talk to my dad before, and when he was still pretty conscious, even with the dementia, the medication he was on for 10 years, he really held his own for like till the end. And we would be watching YouTube videos, and I know you've seen them, Katie. Like you'll have some beautiful like solfeggio frequencies with like visionary artwork in the background with nebulas and all that. And I'm like, Dad, I go, when you're ready to go, like you can just release the body, because he's a double Pisces, Pisces sun, Pisces rising. So his speed walking, that was his thing when he was younger. And how ironic that the dementia would rob the brain of the ability to walk properly. I'm like, you could just go look at that. And he's like, you want me to leave? And I'm like, no, I don't want you to leave, but I don't want you to be in a failing body either, So when you're ready, you can make a conscious choice to go. I go, you're going to be like that. He goes, you think so? I go, oh yeah, look at that. Like when you're out of the body and you're just spirit, come back and show me. I go, do me a favor. If you can come back, I want you to come back and let me know it's you. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
So many signs for my dad, but I'll tell you the most, I mean, I see him in, like, it sounds crazy, but we have these little lizards that'll pop on the window, and it's like Jurassic World here in Central Florida. There's one that's always on the window in the kitchen or the living room. And my niece, Nicole, used to live in the house to help me with the parents. And she would say, yep, that's Poppy. And it wasn't like he's not in the lizard,
Yeah.
but he would always be watching us in the kitchen, and he'd be fascinated how I would just make a meal out of just stuff I'd grab out of the fridge, How do you know what to do? Like, I don't know, just like use what we have. I'm not going to waste food.
Yeah.
But the Christmas, he passed away November 21st, 2 days before my grandson was born. My youngest granddaughter couldn't come. She was about to give birth. But at Christmas time, we were sitting in the living room. It was the first Christmas without my dad. My mom and him were together for like 61 years. She's on one sofa by herself. I'm sitting over here by myself. And diagonally across from me is my brother, his wife, and my niece, right? And we're in like 2 rooms away. And there's a big open kitchen and dining room. And then the wall to their bathroom kind of is one of the interior walls in that room. So anyway, my father had this habit of like putting the toilet seat up and then dropping it. So you hear this slam, right? So we're opening presents. It's just us in the house. And all of a sudden we all hear the toilet seat drop.
Oh, and everyone knew.
Yeah, my best girlfriend that lives in this area, she lives in Casadega, which is a medium. It's a spiritualist camp. You can only live there if you're a medium or you're training to become a medium. This is the people come around for readings and classes. I had a reading after he died. She says, yeah, your dad, he's going to be there for Christmas. Like he wants you to know that, just because he's not there in body, he will still be there. And when that happened, we were like, oh my God. My was such a dad thing of anything else, he could have like touched our cheek or something. No, it wasn't, because he always said he had to pee. And we're like, Dad, you just went. I gotta go. I know my body. And I think a lot of it was the dementia, but he would argue with us. So, that's the sign.
What a cheeky sod.
Yeah, he was funny. You would have liked him.
Oh, I love this. And I love the sharing of stories that we have around this sort of work that we've done across the years. And I even know with Healy, like you and I have shared experiences of how we've helped people to move through particular things and the amazing outcomes that they've got. Like these tools we've got, I feel so blessed and grateful.
Yeah, it's such an incredible tool. And like I just saw a little snippet on Facebook today from somebody in the company, and it's just like, it doesn't replace, like, it's not artificial intelligence to replace the human consciousness. It's a tool to help you peel the cobwebs away of all the programming and conditioning from not just this life, but lifetimes, so that you step into the highest version that you are. That's exactly what the Healy is a tool for. And I've had mine for 3 years. I have 5 of them, and I love them. It's like brought so much clarity to my life.
Yeah. And I love what you've just said. So listeners, if you're interested in Healy, rewind that last bit, because that is just pure gold that came out of your mouth then.
Thank you.
I know that I use mine every day, and I know I'll be tapping into your knowledge around combining astrology with the aura reading. That sounds completely fascinating. What I'd love to ask you is one final question, and that is, if you have if people are interested in finding out more, say, about the astrology work that you do or any of your esoteric knowledge, what advice would you have for them?
Have an open mind, like be open. What I see when I see people struggling now is them like being on the hamster wheel of doing this, the same thing over and over again, getting the same result, which we all know is a definition of insanity. I mean, that phrase has been around for a really long time, yet it's like there's too much ego in the way, right? To try something different. And it's really hard to witness people like slamming their head against the wall. You just want to grab them and go, stop, and try something else, and be open to it working. Because if you're not getting the results that you want, and there's been times that I don't get the results that I want, I can get in my own way. We can all get in our own way. Yeah. But I'm always willing to try something new. And when I can prove to myself that, this did work, I am getting the results. Now I'm realizing it's really intention. It's like, you can't have your one foot in and one foot out. You have to be fully committed. Right.
And that does so much draw back to the very start of our conversation around intention, doesn't it? So powerfully.
Yep. Intentionally commit to what it is where you want to go in life, and you're going to do anything, and I don't believe it's all action oriented. I mean, action is some of it, but it's the intention, and allowing that to come through spirit, however it's going to land. Just like this discussion, we're like, let's just talk and see where this discussion goes. So being open to allowing it to come in how it's meant to. And here's the other thing too, following the signs. Like, don't second guess yourself. This is what my friend says all the time. She teaches classes on mediumship, and she's so good. And we would have to do readings for each other. So she'd lead us through a meditation first, right? A guided meditation. Then we come out and she's like, okay, this is the exercise. You're going to sit across from each other and put you in groups of 3 or 4, and you have to read for each other. So I would have to read for you if there's 2 other people, for each of you, and just sit in front of you. And whatever came to me, even if it sounded crazy, I just have to say it. Right. And she would say, first thought, first impression. So the same thing in your own life. The first thought or first impression you get is usually spirit, your higher self trying to reach you, but you think it's nonsensical. It doesn't make rational sense.
Yeah.
But when I would do those readings, people would be like, oh my God, that was spot on.
Yeah. Wow.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but like it would make sense to them. So I just learned to trust yourself.
And
trust
your
yourself.
Intuition. That's like,
yeah.
I'll be rushing out with the kids and I'll see the keys on the where I leave them, and I'll be like, I better grab those or I'll forget them. And then I keep going and I buzz around and I do all the things. And then I'm out in the front lawn and I'm like, damn, I forgot the keys. It's like, you should have listened to yourself when you were back there and you grabbed the keys as you went past. Like, I love how you just spoke about it, as in that first thought is the actual thing.
Yeah. And you have to, the more you do it, the better you get. But I'll tell you just one quick story before we end. It was like when my kids were in school, I think the youngest one was in nursery school. My other daughter was in elementary school. I was cleaning the house and I was in my daughter's bedroom and had to go through this living room and through another doorway into the other part of the house. And as I was going, I saw a shoe in the middle of the floor. And I heard that voice say, you better pick the shoe up before somebody trips. And like you with the keys, I was in too much of a hurry. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to the other room. I'm getting what I'm getting. Go and do what I do. I come back to go the same way, to go back into her bedroom to clean. I tripped over that flipping shoe.
Oh no.
But it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it was so humbling. I dropped right to my knees and I went, oh my God, goddess. I'm like, thank you, because I heard you and I just chose to ignore you. So from that moment forward, even if I'm walking through the kitchen and I see like a coffee cup kind of teetering, like kind of near the edge, and I hear that, better push it back before somebody knocks it over. I will back 2 steps if I have to move it. Like I always, and when I do that, whether it's something small or something real big decision in my life, when I listen, it flows. When I choose not to listen and let the ego to come in, oh, it's a mess. So honestly, if I could save you any time, listen to your like spirit, yourself. You feel it, you know it. Don't second guess yourself. And then do an experiment. Do it for a month. I want to ask people to do it for 1 month and write down at the end of the day how things flowed when you listened. And then if you choose to, like, if you ignore it, be mindful and write down what happened. And I want you to compare, because I guarantee you the days you followed that are going to be a lot
What
smoother.
a fantastic challenge. I love it. I get told to do some whacked out stuff, and usually every time I follow it, I do some fun things, like, you know, driving down back streets that I've never driven down before, and I find really quaint little beautiful yoga studios, and I'm like, ooh, get out of the car, check it out. You know, had I have not listened, I would never have driven down that little road.
Exactly. So gems always come out of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I absolutely love that wisdom you've passed on at the end there. We appreciate you and your time and coming onto the podcast today. Thank you, Dina.
Thank you, love. Appreciate you.
Bye.